Hey y'all, thank you for joining me today. We are in the back of my shop in our new design studio, along with my team here who we'll introduce in a minute. We have the pleasure of having Art Murray with us today from Flambeaux. Art and I met, I guess, in 2012 when we were on the board of the MSMA together, and he moved to California after that and started Flambeaux Wine. And Flambeaux is one of the only wines that I drink. It's an amazing product, and I'm excited to do a tasting today to show you just a few of their wines that they have to offer. So I'm going to let Art take it away from here.
Thank you, Rivers, and thank you to everybody for joining today. This is something we've been doing recently. Obviously, these virtual tastings are sort of becoming a thing, and I think it was long overdue. So I'm excited to do this one. A bit about us. We're originally from New Orleans, as Rivers mentioned. I'm born and raised there. But I just always had this sort of weird pipe dream to do this wine label. And I think it was always sort of in the back of my mind and maybe retirement, but things change and you just kind of roll with it. And this brand came to be. Being from New Orleans, we wanted a label that was very New Orleans and something that reminded us of home. And we wanted sort of a tribute homage to home. So just as an example, this is our label. The Flambeaux are the torchbearers of Mardi Gras. So obviously very New Orleans, but if you know a little bit about the Flambeaux, they before there were streetlights, they really illuminated the parades, and they sort of had a purpose. And then of course we got streetlights in New Orleans, and people were like, well, what do you do with the Flambeaux? They were such an important part of it. And what we realized was it was so much more about the celebration and the fun that they have, and that's sort of the spirit that we want in our wine, is just celebration, bringing people together, having fun. So that. And they are torchbearers, and if you think about it, we have 3 generations of our family making this wine, so it's sort of passing the torch. So that is how it came, that's where it came from, but a bit more about the wine. So I think we're gonna try 4 wines today, is that right, Rivers?
Yes, we have the Rosé, Chardonnay, Zinfandel, and then I think this is the Dry Creek Valley Cab.
Right, and we'll start with the Rosé and just a bit about. So when you're tasting, just, you don't have to have someone here talking to you about the notes. What you're really trying to do is get all the senses involved. And so one of the first things that you can do, and the Rosé is a great one to do it with, is just take a look at the color of the wine. And hopefully you guys have it in your glasses, and you can just see that actually has a lot. It means a lot. Not only is it just pretty to look at, but a good Rosé, they don't have to be pink. That is sort of a misconception. A Rosé is in this instance, it's a bleed off of the grapes without leaving it on the skins, right, for very long. Skins are what impart color. So when you look at the cab, we leave the skins on those grapes for a very long time during fermentation. That makes that wine very dark. You'll see that when we get to it. Whereas with a Rosé, it's just on the skin for a very small amount of time, giving you this pink hue. The grape juice that you get when you do press in the very beginning is clear. I mean, it's essentially it looks like white wine. So it's the skins that give it the color. So there's your color. And then of course, you want to put it to your nose. I always recommend don't smell with both nostrils, tilt to the side and use one nostril. Now, if you ask me why that is, I don't know. It just works. You get more. And of course, the more you drink, remember, don't feel like you have to know what you're tasting. All we care about at first is that you like it and that it's something that you enjoy. There's going to be some varietals you really like and some that you don't necessarily like, and that's okay. Your palate will change over time, and as you drink more, you'll pick up more of those notes. So the Rosé is a fun one because it really has a lot going on and different things all at once. So we've done smell, we've looked at it, and I think the next logical thing would be to taste it. So take a sip if you don't mind, guys.
We already tasted it, Art. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, that happens a lot too. The reason people like rosés in the summer in particular is they're sort of sweeter. We do not please don't make the mistake of thinking we make a sweet wine. It is not a sweet wine by any stretch. It's a dry wine, minimal sugar. This one in particular, because it's a blend of Zinfandel and Cabernet, all of which are from the property behind me. It's going to be a little drier. What I like about that is you get those sweet notes. You're going to get a little strawberry, a little lemon zest, some really pretty citrus, and then you're going to get at the end that crisp finish, that sort of drier finish, and you're going to feel it a little bit in here. And that's that cab working. So 70% Zen, 30% Cab. We think it's really pretty, and it's sort of a pairing rosé. You don't be afraid to pair this with things. Shrimp tacos comes to mind, anything ceviche, very light, but it's not just for quenching your thirst. Rosés, I don't know if you ever heard the expression porch pounder. This is not a porch pounder. This is not one that you just pull out and start drinking.
Are you sure about that?
Unless you're so inclined. So I don't know what you guys think about this rosé. I think it's
nice. I don't usually like rosé, but this one's good.
Yeah, it's very light.
And so in my understanding that rosé is something you really only drink in spring and summer. Is that?
No, that's also a misconception. I mean, obviously, when it's warmer, you want to drink it. The mistake that people make with a rosé is they want to make it really cold. They want to chill it down because they think, okay, it's hot. I need to have it like that. The mistake you're making is you're not going to get all of that flavor. When it's too cold, it doesn't release that. It sort of it restricts it. So what we want is cellar temperature. Cellar temperature, for lack of a better number, is about 55 degrees. So think about it like that. You put it in your fridge, but don't leave it in your fridge.
And
you want it to be, go ahead.
I didn't realize this until recently, but isn't 55 degrees what you should keep all of your wines?
I'll only serve our reds at 55, and people are always kind of surprised by that. It's a little bit cooler. But that's how the French have been doing it for hundreds of years, and they know a thing or two. But the Chardonnay, people make the mistake again. That's the next one. We'll talk about it. They chill it too much, and if it gets too cold, you're not going to get that fruit. And we want you to taste the complexity of the wine and of the fruit. And we're trying to sort of coach you on ways to avoid that. So you don't want it too hot or too cold. Generally speaking, we do 2-ounce pours for a tasting. And we always tell people, look, we're going through 4 wines today, and there's times when I do tastings where it's like 8. And so please don't be afraid, as you go, to pour it out, particularly if you don't like it. It doesn't hurt our feelings, and we want you to have enough palate to get through the rest. Because your palate does kind of desensitize. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but a really beautiful wine at hour 1 may not be quite as beautiful at hour 3. And it's just the reality of your palate.
Nothing is.
Having all that.
I got one of these things that you told me to get.
Yes, so that's great. It's a dump bucket, and it's just, the reality is, it's okay. It's okay. You're not wasting wine. You're making the experience enjoyable all the way through. So don't be afraid to use it, and this way you don't have to look at it.
Art, what is this called? This thing?
I call it a dump bucket. I guess there's probably a better term for it.
A spittoon, I think, is what it's called.
Call it a spittoon. That's fine. I like dump bucket, but yeah. So make sure you have that, and make sure you have water. I don't know if I can't really quite see your setup exactly, but I see some sort of cheese, great. So do a little water between tastings. We'll probably be moving to the Chard soon, unless anyone has any more questions about rosé. And by the way, there's 2 ways to make rosé, just so you guys know. You can do what's called a bleed off, which is so for instance, while we're making our Cabernet, you're going to have juice just during that process that sort of bleeds off that you wouldn't necessarily use in your wine, but it's still very beautiful grapes, and you can kind of get more purpose out of it this way. There are some who do a direct press rosé, that their intention is to make the rosé, and all of it goes to that. That's a different method. We don't do it, and you'll see that a lot in Provence. But I do like to think our style is a lot like a Provence rosé. Okay,
so before we start the Chardonnay pour, if it's okay with you, Art, I'd like to go around and introduce you to my team. I know you've met some of them, but not all of them. So first we have Parker Kennedy, who I don't think you've met. And Parker is our director of floor sales and runs the shop. And then we have Kristen Depp, who is my right hand and does everything for me. My assistant, she takes care of me. And then next we have Maggie, who is our marketing coordinator. And then Kira is my design director. And then Kennedy is our junior designer.
Hello.
So that was a lot.
I just started rambling and didn't even bother asking for names. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, so I think we can move on to tasting the Chardonnay now.
Sure. So like I said, I kind of geek out about Chardonnay. I am not a big white wine fan. I'll tell you up front. But what I do really like is the Burgundian style of white wine, which is the Chardonnay. So
can you explain what that means?
Yeah. So there's a region in France, Burgundy, where you'll find the red Burgundy is basically a Pinot, what you would know as a Pinot in the States, and then the white Burgundy is the Chardonnay. So you're getting I think, so that is why for this wine, we use a lot of French oak. It's 100% French oak, in fact, but we don't use all new oak, and that's very important. We like wood on wine. We don't want you to taste nothing but wood. There are some Chardonnay makers, because of I don't know if it's stylistic or just because they want their wines to be bigger, they use 100% new French oak. That is going to put a lot of flavor, a lot of things going on that wine. When you think of oak on a white wine, you think of butter. So if you guys like a really, really big buttery Chardonnay, I'll be very frank with you, this is not your Chardonnay. It does have that oak on it, but we have gotten some of the best fruit, I think, in Sonoma County. It's the San Giacomo family. They have 2 vineyards, and it's Keyser, they pronounce it Keyser, and Roberts Road. I'm just going to show you, hopefully this map is sort of visible. So that's Sonoma, and in this southern portion here, if my fingers work, the 2 vineyards are split like that. They are both technically Sonoma Coast vineyards, but they're very different terroir. So one is Petaluma Gap, so you think of kind of cold nights, it's just a different environment. You're going to get a lot of that fruit, a lot of concentration. And then Carneros is very different, in my opinion. It's very earthy. And so we do both and put them together. But we don't want you to miss that really beautiful fruit by tasting nothing but oak. So that is our style. It's about 40% new French oak, and you will see it's got a lot of that flavor, but you're going to taste a lot of fruit, a lot of citrus. So hopefully, again, we've looked at it. I don't know if you guys saw the color on it. It's got a really pretty color. This is fined, meaning we filter it. There are some people who make their Chardonnay unfiltered, and you'll see it's cloudier. It doesn't mean it's bad. Ours just looks like this. You smell it. River's already tasted. Busted.
Sorry.
Tasted early.
I couldn't wait for you to finish talking.
I'm finished talking, sorry. But you know what? It's a passion project. We love it. And at the end of the day, I probably never make any money, but I'd like it so that the kids inherit a going concern with a customer base. And
So they're 2 younger daughters. How old are they?
yeah, they're 9 and 14, excuse me, just turned 14. And when I say that like it's 3 generations making wine, it is 3 generations making wine. The 9 and the 14-year-old literally go out and pick. They have their own row. It takes them a long time, but it's, you have to learn. And then we do a sort, and we were doing sorts for all these different picks, and they're there on the line. So sorting is just basically picking out grapes that you don't think meet the test, and that is a very subjective thing. There are machines that can theoretically do it, but we believe in I. And the kids are actually great at it because they're really close to the line, and they can like pick out the junk really easy. So that's it. It just makes your life a lot easier, and I really don't think you can take something that you get. And here's another example. I don't know if you can see behind me. This vineyard, we're hillside, and we're sort of tucked away. You'll see on the Cabernet that's particularly special for Cab. I don't like valley floor, and there's nothing wrong with it. You can get a lot more vines on valley floor, but and a lot more yield. But I don't think the quality is as good. And the reason is that when you're on a hillside, you don't have standing water. You don't have issues with fungus and mildew and disease as much. So it's sort of a choice. We choose to make less to what we think to lead to a more beautiful wine. So that's, and the Chardonnay actually, just so you know, does not come from this property. Again, it's offsite, it's further to the south. You cannot make Chardonnay in Dry Creek, or at least you wouldn't want to. What we can make well, and what we're really known for, is that Zinfandel that's next.
Or did you say grapefruit for the Chardonnay? What was the fruit you said?
Oh, on this one, I just get a lot of citrus notes, but yeah, you get a little grapefruit.
You taste coconut, Maggie? Maggie says she tastes coconut.
No, that's okay. That's kind of, it's got tropical notes, and sure. I always tell people you're not tasting the wrong thing, you're tasting what you taste.
Sure, that wasn't your spray tan.
If you want to know what Ryan, the winemaker, thinks, because he knows a lot more than I do, he says that it has obviously the minerality, but lemon curd, tropical fruits, and fresh baked challah. So I'm such a less sophisticated palate. I kind of get that bread talk, what he's talking about with bread. I definitely get the little citrus, but I couldn't identify a specific fruit by any stretch.
Okay, well, I think we can taste the lemon part of that. And I tasted
yeah,
grapefruit.
that's there for sure.
Okay, so the next wine, this is the Zinfandel?
Yeah, and just before I forget, on the Chardonnay, one of the reasons that I really like that wine for New Orleans is that we have a lot of buttery, rich foods. So just make a note, it works really well with your big, like seafood dishes, trout meuniere, because too much butter, think about with the wine and the food. So it's a great pairing, Chardonnay. So Zinfandel, sorry. You see the color. Zinfandel is a wine that it got kind of a bad rap in the 80s for the whole white Zin Franzia craze, which was, I guess, great for some, like if you were in college, I mean, we all drank that, right?
No.
So I had an impression of it that a lot of people had, and they were tearing out vines in this valley because they couldn't make any money. Zinfandel tanked because it was just considered sort of a cheap wine. But it's originally known as Primitivo. It's from Croatia. It's a beautiful grape. It's a little fruit forward. Unlike the Cab, it's not quite as tannic, but it has a lot going on. And the key is in Dry Creek, with our soil, with the minerality, we make a really pretty Zinfandel. As I discovered Zin and learned more about it, I realized that I found them to either be too jammy because they are fruit forward. So think about jam, sweet, or they were pepper bombs, right? They had just too much pepper. People were adding a lot of Petite Syrah. I didn't like that. So on ours, hopefully when you try it, or if you already have tried it, it's elegant, it's soft, it's approachable. People don't think a Zin can be that, but it can be. It's not high alcohol like most of them are, and it's smooth. It pairs with a lot of things. This is your kind of ultimate pairing wine. If you're having a party, it's great by itself, but it can be paired with anything.
They love it.
Thank you. So it's, and some people who really love Zin would say, oh, that's not a Zin, and that's not true. It's not what you're used to. We put French oak on it. We do things that no one does because we want it to be different. So hopefully you like it.
They love it.
So our wine making process can add a lot of tannins. So think about it. If you do 100% new French oak, that wine is going to be big on tannins. And that's why we talk about wines aging for a long time. The reason we like to see them age isn't just because it's great to be able to taste the wine 10 years later. It's because that wine has now changed so much because the tannins have laid down and that fruit and some of those other notes have come up. And so that you'll see that on our wines. I mean, these wines can age. This Zinfandel could probably age 10 years, and it's going to get different over time. But it's especially true of the Cabernet as well. So tannins are important, and we love them. And by the way, when you're tasting tannin, it's this dry, sucking feeling right here. So you'll notice on a Cabernet or a really big red, you're going to feel it a lot. Whereas on the Rosé, you're not going to feel it as much.
Can you tell us a little bit about how long each wine has to, and if it's different for different types of wine, how long they have to stay in the barrel, like how many years it takes before you release them and open them?
So some people do things differently. There are some French winemakers that'll leave their wine on for 36 months in barrel. So, I mean, that's 3 years of that wine just sitting there. We don't do that. We do 22 months. I've got a bug that wants to interfere. We do 22 months on our Cabernet. That's a pretty long time. We do 11 months on the Zin and the Chardonnay. And then the Rosé is not very long at all. That is not an aging wine. It's a wine that you want to drink within the first couple of years. The Chardonnay and the Zin, Chardonnay would probably hold up with that kind of aging, 11 months for 6 to maybe 8 years on the, and again, it's not like at year 6, the wine's dead. I mean, it has a nice long kind of drop off. It's slow and steady. And then eventually, you don't want to drink it. But these cabs could probably last 20 years. We have a lot of tannins on them. We'll talk about that a bit more because the Cabernet is where tannins really come into play.
Once you open it, how long do you have?
Yeah, so it depends on the wine. Generally with the Rosé and the Chardonnay, I don't hold those for more than a couple of days, and I keep them in the cellar and I keep them dark. Now that's not, now remember, I'm trying to show them to people in their prime. So obviously you can do a little bit more than that. And the Cab will hold up a little bit longer. Remember, it's got those tannins, so it still has that defense. Another thing, think about how much oxygen you have in that bottle. So yeah, if you drank like a glass, it's going to hold up a lot longer than if you drank all but a glass. Does that make sense? So, because you got all that oxygen beating up on that last little bit.
Okay, so the last wine that we're going to try is the Dry Creek Valley Cabernet. And this is my favorite wine, other than their Reserve, which I love as well. But I drink this on a regular basis. It's very full. And it changed the way that I feel about wines. I used to only drink Pinot Noir, which is very, very light and peppery. And this totally changed my perspective. And I think it's one of the best wines I've ever had. So, Art?
Thank you. Yeah. So we're sort of known for our cab. The best example I have is this was our 2014. And we only made cab the first 2 years. And that's sort of how we got kind of on the map. And it started at about 450 cases. And now we're at 1,500 cases. We've mostly grown by adding varietals, not by adding vineyards. I like our sites, and I'm not really anxious to change that. So the first 2 years were only cab. We wanted to have 2 cabs. I believe that there are 2 distinct cab styles. There is what we would think of as a traditional California Cabernet, and for a lot of reasons, those taste a little bit bluer. I use the word blue. Think of your dark fruit.
I've never heard that expression.
Okay, well, so like blackberries, the darker fruit, dark plum, that's what you're going to taste on the California Cab, and there are reasons for that. But when you do 100% French oak is tighter grain, like we talked about, so it's going to get a little bit more, less oxygen, more tannins. So when you think of wines that are aged in French oak, they are going to have a lot more tannin, and we do that on that one cab that we're talking about. Every year we've sort of moved around. The first 2 years it was Sonoma Valley. Then we went to Fountain Grove. Unfortunately, we lost them to the fires in 2017. It was a beautiful, like 1,400-foot site, amazing, volcanic soil. We miss it. But then we went to Alexander Valley in 2017, and I think you'll see we're releasing that at the end of the year. It's amazing. Alexander Valley is just a great place to make cab. So we do that. That's 100% French oak. Now, Dry Creek Valley, where I am, sitting behind me, we make Cabernet from here. And if you look at this soil, hopefully I'm not good at this. Can you see that? It's very red. And the reason is that it has a lot of iron, it has a lot of minerality. So this site, because of that soil, reminds me of a Left Bank Bordeaux, a more traditional French style wine. And Bordeaux's, in my opinion, they skew redder, right? We talked about the bluer one. This is redder. It is your more red fruits, your raspberries, cherries. You're going to get, and then of course you're going to get the notes that cabs have. Tobacco, and we want you to get that minerality. So how did we do that on this wine that you're about to try, the 2016 Dry Creek? We do 60% American oak, and that's not a sin, okay? American oak is beautiful. We're making it a lot better now. This is from Minnesota, and our white oak, unlike French oak, is not as tight grained. I can't explain to you why, but I can tell you that when it's looser grained, more oxygen gets through. So think about it, less tannins in the aging process. So you're going to get a little bit softer wine. The reason I was able to get Rivers to try this wine as a Pinot drinker was I said, look, try it. It's not going to blow you away with the tannins. It's very soft, very silky, and it's elegant, but it's got great fruit, great complexity, and really wonderful minerality. So this is our 3rd year that you're tasting, and I think we get better and better. But the 15, which was amazing, it was a top 100 Sonoma wine. I think in about a year, this will be blowing it away. So hopefully you guys have tried it and give me feedback if you don't like it.
I think this is a good time for you to tell people who are watching us on IGTV how to get your wine and the way that you are distributed currently.
Sure. So the best way to get our wine is simply to go to the website. The way the DTC rules have changed, the direct-to-consumer rules have changed, we're able to sell to most states. There's a few exceptions, and if you're one of those exceptions, talk to us because we can maybe lobby your legislature. But in the meantime, just about 40-something states, you can get our wine directly. We can ship it to you. So in Louisiana, for example, we do ship straight to you. Our cabs are very in high demand, and they're somewhat limited. So our 14 and 15 cabs, we have in what's called a library. And the library protects it for our club members. So if you join the club, you can go back and try those old wines. Rivers is in the club. So she constantly goes back and tries the old wines.
You forced me at the beginning.
What's that?
You forced me several years ago at the beginning.
I did. I made her do it, but I don't think she's regretted it.
Now I'm probably your best customer.
Yes, you are. And you mentioned the reserve. The reserve is this property on 100% new French oak. It's our 2 favorite barrels. So the reserve is very special. And again, you can only get that if you're in the club, but you can join the club online. You can order your wine. If you want to try it at restaurants, we are in a few states through distribution. So in Louisiana, obviously that's our big market, just because we're from there, we know people. And so we're in a lot of restaurants in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and we're distributed through Republic. So you will even find us at a few of the what they call the Tier 1 Rouse's stores, Dorignex, some of the local groceries. Outside of that, we're in Florida. Our cabs are. In fact, our Dry Creek Cab is the big. They have it in all their stores in Florida, and then Minnesota, a smattering, and then California and Texas. So we're keeping. Look, we're at 1,500 cases. We are babies compared to most brands that you'll know.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that, Art. So comparably, how many cases does someone like Silver Oak produce?
Oh, it's hundreds of thousands, if not
Millions.
Probably more than that. I honestly, Silver Oak is so well, but it's a beautifully made wine. But remember, the difference for us is when you get to that size, you cannot physically make that from one vineyard. It's impossible. And so at that point, you're taking a bunch of vineyards and trying to sort of force into a style that you're known for. You're going to push that wine together collectively to give it the taste that people know. We don't want that. We want fingerprints to come from each individual site, small case counts, that you'll know every year will be special. It's going to taste different because every year is different, but it's going to have that fingerprint that goes through it. So this Dry Creek that you're tasting, you're always going to get a little bit of that minerality and definitely spice. And so it's kind of a wine you can go to and trust, and we want that. We may never get over 10,000 cases because that's our philosophy. I think that the key is for new people to wine. We wanted a wine that you could try like Rivers did, and no problem, it's not overpowering, but we also wanted a wine that was complex and had a lot going on so that people who have had wine for 30 years would love it and feel like it was something that was worthy of their, frankly, their more developed palate. I brought her book. So she is there's a book called Wine Dogs, and these dogs are they're mascots for the brand. They're a big part of the brand. And they also do serve a purpose. I mean, Stella chases off turkeys. She literally guards the grapes. She has a job. So she does what, she is a true wine dog, but she's sort of our local celebrity, and we can take her to town and people kind of fawn over her, and then we'll get a tasting or two out of it. So it's a win-win. I'm obsessed with her. I'm like the parent that takes a picture of every second of the kid's day. I'm terrible. Oh, so they look like Pyrenees. She's what's called a Maremma. They're sort of a rare breed. They are Italian sheepdogs. They are a cousin of the Pyrenees, so much taller, much skinnier. I mean, it sort of surprises people because she is so sweet, but they're bred to defend packs in the Alps mountains from wolves. They are total, I can't say the word, but they're tough. Terrified of the water. Mountain dogs, they love the cold. They don't like water. I don't know what it is. But what's weird is we'll take her to the coast like we did yesterday. I think you may have seen that. She will walk on a cliff edge like it's nothing. Despite being as big as she is agile like a ballerina. It's really fun to watch, but it's terrifying because you think she's going to drop off the cliff edge at any moment, and she won't. That's what they're bred to do.
I think all at one point a team member has watched y'all's story. So we all.
Look, Rivers and I have been friends since 2012. I mean, it goes back to when I had a po' boy shop. I don't know what I was thinking on magazine.
He started Mahoney.
I mean, it was wonderful.
Mahoney is his
restaurants are kind of tough investments and they're stressful. This is stressful. It obviously requires a lot of my time, but you can tell, I hope, that I just enjoy it. I love it. It's what I want to do, and it's bringing me joy.
Art, we have really enjoyed this today. Thank you so much for being here with us, and I hope that everyone who's watching will click on the link that Maggie's going to link Art's website, where you can buy a package of wine or you can join the club. I encourage everyone who's watched this here today to try Flambeaux. I did, and I loved it, and now it's one of the only wines that I'll drink. So I hope you've learned something, and thank you for being here with us today. So good. Oh, cheers.